Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's video. I think this is going to be a really cool one. Let's get into it. So today we're going to be discussing market research and analytics, how to pretty much vet your market area. And before you invest, I think location is something that you really need to nail down. I always think that it starts first with the property, right? But before even like researching property, like you're putting in filters as far as like what areas that you're more comfortable with investing, which areas you think has the best potential for growth. So you're basing your investment thesis off of the location, right? The certain submarket, tertiary market that you think has or is poised for growth. And then you're basing it off of the property condition risk as well, right? So those two things, I think it's really critical to keep that in mind. And then obviously your financial due diligence, your property due diligence, those periods start after that. Yeah, so let me just get into this quick video. I'm just going to pull up a few notes that I've kind of taken into account. And then also a great resource that I highly recommend. Um, but anyways, when I'm like doing market research, I kind of disperse it off of like different sources, right? So I either have data companies which I follow on like a weekly basis, such as Yardi Matrix or Real Page as well. Those are free resources that you can utilize. They post reports, webinars, great information sessions where you can gain a lot of insight. And then you also have, I would say, just in like real time market updates, I would say, through like BizNow, Globe Street. Those are all like pretty much headline news kind of things, like as far as like what's happening particularly in that area. So for instance, here in Philadelphia, we have a lot of good activity as far as like life science buildings, right? So there's been a lot of news and headline as far as the financing for those upcoming projects. So yeah, and then the other ones I would just say are brokerage reports. You can get those straight from the brokers or the brokerage firm's website. So they have like construction pipeline reports, which is what I'm reviewing today. They also have just basic market fundamental reporting. And also I would say some other different styles of reporting, such as like property management reports, other cool creative things that a lot of great analysts, market analysts, particularly those are the ones that make these reports come up with. Yeah, so I'm just going to be reviewing one today, and then we'll talk you guys through what I think is valuable from it. So yeah, first we're just gonna start out with a cool visual that I or kind of like a bullet point kind of checklist that I just created. So I'm just gonna get that on the screen real quick. Bear with me here. Okay. Um, so, so just going to that on the screen. Okay. Um, Okay, awesome. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so let me share the screen real quick. Okay, awesome. So this is just a quick checklist that I use whenever vetting like an area, right? So obviously there's more to it. There's a lot more data that you can track. But these are things that I tend to just look at. So first off would just be population growth. So if it's a larger metro, such as like Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, then you're going to have a lot more population there. So it's normal to see lower population growth trends in those areas. But whereas like it's a small submarket, lower population, you want to see at least like maybe like 10 to 15% over the last like 10, 15 years. I think that's a reasonable number to track. And then so positive, negative migration. Now, obviously, the advanced data companies have that data. So they're basically tracking how many people are moving in, how many people are either doing remote work or international work in that area, right? So there's, and honestly, there's also things that you can track through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They have pretty much a detailed breakdown of each and every employment like sector, right? So yeah, so positive negative migration, job growth is a huge one. So I always track non-farm payroll through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That shows pretty much a good idea of how the economy, the urban economy, some suburban as well, is operating. And then affordability as well. So the 4X rule for affordability is what I use. Now, this is something that I had to correct over the years is I've been using median, and median is actually a less accurate figure. Average is probably the best thing that you can find, but I've had trouble finding like average household income across markets, but median is also okay. But I'll just know that median is like the middle number out of a set of data points, right? So it's going to be somewhat inaccurate as far as the mean. The mean, which is the average, is going to be the most accurate. So if that number is like 25% or lower for like the proportion of rent, then that's actually a really affordable area to invest in. That means that people are there's going to be higher retention there because people are not going to want to move out into a more expensive area, right? So there's higher retention, probably a more stable tenant base, and just better overall living standards probably as well. So yeah, so compare the average rents with the average income, and then also percent of renters in the area. So seeing like how much people afford single family homes or owner occupied homes, right? Compared to how many people are just renting. That's also a good indicator. And then supply demand characteristics. So when supply outpaces demand, landlords start offering concessions, which ultimately slows rent growth. Actually, I kind of take that back. So wait, I always like to just draw a basic graph, right? So just a basic supply demand graph, just outlining how it works, right? So if supply is going to increase, right? That means that prices are going to go down, right? So if prices are going to go down, it probably means that people demand will eventually catch up and meet at that equilibrium. So this was kind of done a while ago, so I apologize if some of this is kind of like here and there. Yeah, so supply demand characteristics is something that you should keep an eye out for. And then landlord friendly areas. This is a huge one that I always take a look at. So first off, you can base that off of just crime, right? Like history of crime in the area. So is it something that people want to grow a family with, right? They don't want to invest in a sketchy area or a suspicious area where there's a higher risk of crime. So you can track some crime indexes for those numbers. And then obviously for landlord specific data, I would look up eviction history. This is straight from the county, just understanding what their process is, the length, or the timeline of their eviction process. And then also no deposit limits. So it's a bad sign if landlords don't have enough time to return security deposits, because that means, that's just a constriction, a restriction on the landlord's workflow, right? So yeah, short notice requirements as well. We usually like through property management softwares, you have like these forms already like kind of built into it, like notice for inspection, notice for evacuation, fire inspection, right? different types of forms that you can send out, like so that people are well aware of what's going on within the facility, and how maintenance as well as kind of taking care of the facility. So short notice requirements are something that kind of pressures landlords into making things like kind of happen as soon as possible. So I would say that's something to look out for. Low operating expenses as well. Basically, uh, average operating expenses that we've seen are probably ranging from like 40 to 50% on average. Anything over like 60% is something to take concern over. Just noting that that's going to impact the long-term cash flow potential. You're going to see a higher risk of negative cash flow after debt service. So yeah, I would keep in mind for low operating expenses. And honestly, utilities, taxes, insurance, which are your non-controllables, you can try to negotiate these up front with your prospective companies. You can try a tax appeal, right? Negotiating with your insurance brokers, and negotiating with like the utility management company which you're paying for, right? At your local township or borough. So yeah, so there's ways to mitigate operating expenses, but yeah, so but action has to be taken up front, right? So you can't negotiate after the contract's already in place. It should be happening up front, and you should be mindful about that too. So no rent control as well. So this is a huge topic in a lot of areas. So I know in California there's more stringent restrictions on both tenants and landlords. So they have rent control, and it's probably really restricting to a property's potential growth and the returns that it generates from it. So I would watch out for that and have more flexibility as far as rent control. Now, how you go about doing your rent bumps on an annual basis, that's up to you as the operator. And that's something you should be mindful about your market and putting something that is reasonable. Otherwise, tenants are going to notice that and be unattracted to your facility, right? So yeah, and then submarket drivers, I would say schools, employments, safety, parks, shopping centers, good transportation, obviously affordability. So these things are great to keep in mind. So if you have some big box retailers, Walmart, Target, Giant, Home Depot, Lowe's, all of those big box retailers that are in the area, you're going to see a more stable economy because there's more access to goods, and that also kind of benefits that area as far as like the construction that's happening, activity as far as just overall economic activity. And then employment in schools is a huge thing. So for the student housing sector in multifamily, you're going to track like the major universities in that area, also high schools too, and middle schools, just to see an idea of where like a student housing project can be developed, right? So, or if there's already an existing structure that is potential for a value add as well. So, those are some really good sub-market drivers to keep in mind. So yeah, so we're gonna get into this quick report. So we're just gonna do the Philadelphia area right now since that's where we're from. But they have reports across like pretty much each market. So plenty of different uh, data points to get from these. So this is from Berkadia. Most brokerage firms like they're going to use like the top data companies such as CoStar, RealPage, or Yardi, right? So they're most likely going to source their like reporting or different market insights from those data companies. So it's a great way. It's a great way to learn more about data in real estate. So um, got to appreciate like some of these brokerage firms to at least post out some of these reports because it helps the average investor to gain some more insight and be more sophisticated about their investment decisions, right? So yeah, so The first one was suburban Philadelphia and urban Philadelphia. So I'm actually just gonna pull that up here. 1 second. Awesome. Okay, so I think they do this on a quarterly basis, so that's great to see. And let me just share my screen again. Okay, awesome. So this is the basis of how it looks. So you're basically in a three-phase process. So you have under construction, you have planned, and you have perspective, right? So perspective is either in the entitlement process or it's like a concept or development concept that is posted on like a bunch of developer sites or it's marketed that way, right? So as an upcoming project, basically. So basically the for instance, the Sixer Stadium, which is being taken place at the Fashion District in Center City, that's or it's near Chinatown, I think. That's something that would be perspective. Just to give an example, something that's planned is already cleared through the entitlement process. Building permits, all like things are kind of in line. The business plan is already planned out, right? So that would be in the planned phase. And then under construction, the shovel meets the ground and everything kind of starts, right? So three phased kind of way to look at it. So yeah, so here in Philadelphia, you see five construction properties currently, or five properties under construction. One near the riverside here, and then one in Jenkintown, one in Willow Grove, one here in West Conshohocken, and another one I think in near North Philadelphia. So yeah, so that's that. And then some planned construction projects which are already like it's been probably been like years upon years, probably sometimes for the larger unit properties. So for instance, this 244 unit called the Redstone at Baderwood, that probably took a decent amount of time to plan out. And even with like value add projects too, you're gonna see some I would say you're gonna have to go through some of the entitlement processes to either pull permits, do an architectural or engineering study, environmental studies, right? So all of that is gonna have to still go through township approval. So yeah, so this is where most of the activity flow is. There's a lot in the Northwest Philadelphia area, Manayunk, Wynmore. Um, I think Manayunk has a lot of activity there. So, and then perspective is obviously still in the entitlement phase. And it's still going through a lot of proper planning and still has not gotten township approval yet. So, those are the yellow ones indicated here. So yeah, so you see some activity. So currently we're from Fort Washington, like this is where we are. So not too much activity here in the suburbs, but a lot of good activity happening here towards the city. Obviously the suburban one probably has some reporting, but yeah, so this is also the other phase, so lease up phase. So once it's already constructed, your marketing department is going to start to do some marketing attractions and strategies to attract tenants. So this one, number two, is in the lease up phase. Yeah, a lot of good activity here in Bala Cynwyd. That's a great market. So yeah. Under construction, noted by the blue. Got one in Manayunk, one here. So this just gives a good rough idea of like where different pockets are located, right? So what I would do is that like if I have like a lot of activity, let's say here in Yorktown, right? Or Franksville, right? then I would note that that supply is probably going to be there in the near future, right? So supply is going to increase, prices might drop, right? So you could gain from a pricing power perspective. Um, and it might be a decent area as well. So I would first look at like the supply demand balances in different markets where you can gain from a price advantage, and then look at if that area is favorable as far as like landlord friendly areas, affordability, population and job growth perspective, right? And then ultimately make your decision if you want to underwrite that deal, right? So those are just some things to keep in mind. Now, obviously, it does play according to the transactional volume or what's ever on the market, right? So if your criteria is like 10 to 50 units, there's a particular amount of 10 to 50 units that come on the market in like, let's say 2 or 3 months, right? And those are the only ones that come on the market, right? So it's worthwhile to just underwrite that altogether. Even if you don't know, like, I guess that area that well, because upon, I guess, underwriting, it doesn't take too long. You can do your quick market research and see if that's a worthwhile investment, right? So kind of plays hand in hand. You can go either way with it, but yeah. Under construction, so this is kind of in the Center City, Philly area. So Old Kensington, North Square, East Kensington. Um, or sorry, this is where Temple is. Okay, so this is where Temple's campus is. I think it's also near University City as well. So yeah, you're seeing some transactional volume here. Sorry, not transactional, I keep saying construction volume here. And then a little bit here in East Kensington. Um, So yeah, and that's always good to know. So then you can just search up this property. So if you think that some of these are actually worthwhile investments, right? So here, it's just for as far as unit count, right? So if you're a medium-sized multifamily investor, you're probably want to invest in like 10 to 100 units, right? Then you can take all of those units here, search up the address, and just learn more about it, talk to the developer, see his process through. And that's where you can learn, right? So I think that if you learn from other people's experiences who have already done like a full property's life cycle, right? Um, that's a great way to mitigate risk and also just be a better sponsor as far as taking on projects, right? So yeah. And then I think I skipped a few. So you got some here in Chinatown, Center City. Um, a lot more higher unit volumes in Center City with the different high rises and everything. So you're gonna get more units. So yeah. And then here is, what is this area? Oh, this is South Philly. Okay. Yeah. So this is South Philly. Most of this stuff is lower units. It's more residentially zoned, some areas. So you're gonna see even like single family portfolios here, build to rent models here, different types in the South Philly region. Um, Here in, I think this is, where is this? I'm not too sure. Oh, this is still South Philly. Okay. Um, is it? Maybe. Um, yeah. See some areas. Oh, Passyunk. Okay, so this is near Manayunk. Okay, gotcha. Oh, that's University City too. Okay, so this is like a flipped version. Okay, so that's why I was confused. I was like, how does this work like that? So if you look at the map, excuse me. Manayunk is, I think, on the left side, and then The other side should be University City. So let me just look at the map here real quick. Okay, yeah. So I was wrong about it. Sorry about that. So basically, University City, it's still on the left side of the Schuylkill River. So on the right side, that's where you have like Passyunk, Devil's Pocket, Filter Square, Rittenhouse Square is across that. So basically, this is where I would say there's a lot of good volume here and a more stable market, in my opinion. Um, you also have some markets such as Ardmore, Wynwood, Penwyn, Narberth, right? Those markets I would say are a little bit more expensive. So it's not as friendly to a newer investor, but it's still kind of a decent area to look at. So if you look here, you see Drexel Hill is there. How come I can't find Ardmore? Okay, Ardmore is a little bit way out. So yeah, so definitely Ardmore is suburban Philadelphia. So we'll see that with the next report. And we'll also see King of Prussia, Plymouth Meeting, Conshohocken, Doylestown. We'll see all of those different towns. So yeah, so that's kind of like a quick overview of what the urban one looks like. We're gonna get into the suburban one shortly. So yeah. Oh, and another thing, sorry, I keep on sharing my screen. So another thing would just be that they put this like quick kind of spreadsheet together, just notifying what the permit date was, when the forecasted completion date is. So that's a great way to just learn about like the process of projects, right? So yeah, all of these you see are under construction. All of these are planned. And these are the prospective ones. So yeah, and then let's go into the suburban area. So this is suburban Philadelphia. I think this is getting closer to the New Jersey side. So yep. Areas that I don't know too much about, but yeah, Wilmington, this is Delaware side as well. So on the border of Delaware and New Jersey, and Maryland as well. But yeah, so me as like a medium sized value add apartment investor, I would look at just the ones that range in my criteria, 10 to 100 units. I would call up some of the developers, see what their project is looking like. So yeah, so if you look at, so for instance, how about we just take a look at that? So I'm just gonna look up on the map here. So first off, let's just look at one that is perspective, right? So a perspective project will probably have nothing there. It might be just land, right? Or it's like a distressed property, which needs renovation. So there's a lot of Market Streets, but this one particularly is on the Delaware side. How about we just look up like this one, waterfront redevelopment. Yeah. See, so a neighborhood in New Jersey, right? So basically, if we zoomed in here, you see that it's probably like a pocket of land that hasn't gone through the entitlement phase, or they're going through subdivision or rezoning, or going through that initial planning phase, right? So they probably have met with their site engineers, they've done some survey report, and they're presenting it to the township saying that, hey, this might be a nice multifamily development that could impact the community, um, and bring some revitalization to that area. So that would be perspective. And then planned entitlement phase is already over. You've already done your design conceptual, I mean, first comes conceptual, then comes design. You've also presented some renderings and presented that to the county, and they've approved your project. They've also seen your building permits, other permits that you've pulled. So everything is already like planned, right? So it's already planned out. You've probably already met with some contractors in the area. You negotiated terms. Everything is kind of set in place to start construction, and then it would transition into the construction period, right? So building this out in your performa is really valuable, so that you can see the life cycle of a project, right? So from just basic land, right, to the planning phase, to the development phase, and into construction, and then lease up as well. So these phases just take a lot of time, a lot of effort, patience. But when you kind of see like the process in and out, then it's something to take on once you have, I guess, that capital also built up, because ground up development is going to take a decent amount of capital. So yeah, I would, if you're a newer investor, personally, in my opinion, I would start just doing like value add opportunities here and there. And then once you build that cash flow up, you're in a stable position to do a ground up development. And first off, you love that area more than anything, then you should go through that process. But yeah, so this is something to keep in mind. My market data kind of consists of a lot of different sources at once, but I think when you kind of narrow it down to what actually matters before an investment decision, I think that's really key. And especially I think this also plays into the marketing aspect of it as well. So when you're putting together like a pitch deck to attract investor capital, you need to have like your market, your location, demographics, all of those different insights as far as the property itself as well. All of those different insights, you need to have that nailed down, right? Otherwise, it's going to be hard to attract or retain investors throughout that raising capital process. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful. If you guys are in the area in Philadelphia, would love to network, kind of talk through upcoming investment opportunities, development projects if you have any, and just learning from your experience, and then also what we have in store as well for our company as well. So love to hear about it. So our company, American Real Estate Group, you can find us at ARG Design Build. You can also just text or email me. I'm more than willing to just talk about real estate. So yeah, appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, and stay tuned for more.